Hey guys, in this video we're going to cover maybe the most fundamental part of how to operate your camera technically, but also creatively, which is how to manually set your exposure. Exposure refers to how bright or dark your image is. When your image is too bright, we say that it's overexposed, and when it's too dark, we say that it's underexposed. You may have also heard of manually setting your exposure as shooting in manual mode. We say shooting in manual mode because you manually control the three elements in your camera that will determine how bright your image is, but also a lot of the creative aspects of your image. Once you understand these elements, you will have way more control over what your final image looks like. Understanding these elements really is fundamental to operating a camera. With that being said, there's a lot in this video, and so if you need to rewatch it and rewatch it again, I hope that you will. So let's dive into what these three elements are and how they affect your image. They are shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. All of those things work together to let more or less light into your camera's sensor. And so to properly set your exposure, you first need to understand each of those three key elements. So first we have shutter speed. Shutter speed controls how long your sensor is exposed. The longer it's exposed, the more light it will capture, and the shorter it's exposed, the less light it will capture. As a point of reference, this is what a 1 second shutter looks like. And this is what a 1/1000th of a second shutter looks like. As you can see, the 1 second shutter lets in a lot more light, but that also controls motion blur. The longer the sensor is exposed, the more blur you'll get in your image. To help show this, I've got this little truck here, and I'm gonna roll it down this ramp so that we can see what different shutter speeds look like and how much motion blur there is. I'm gonna start off with 1 second and take a photo. And that is a 1 second exposure. Take another photo, and that is 1/4 of a second and 1/8 of a second. Next photo, 1/25 of a second, 1/80th of a second, 1/200th of a second, 1/500th of a second, 1/2000th of a second, and 1/8000th of a second. Next up, the aperture. The aperture controls the iris inside of your lens and is measured in f-stops. The higher the number, the smaller the iris in your lens, and the lower the number, the wider the iris in your lens. Aperture also controls depth of field. Depth of field refers to how much of your image is in focus. So with a super wide open aperture of 1.4, your lens is going to let in a lot of light, and it's also going to have a super shallow depth of field. Here's a photo of what I'm talking about. This photo was taken with an aperture of f1.4. And you can see how shallow the depth of field is. Whereas this photo was taken from the exact same spot with an aperture of f22. And you can see how much of the image is in focus. It's worth noting, not all lenses are created equal. Some lenses can go super wide open like 1.2 or 1.4, and other lenses, the widest open they can go is like 5.6. The third thing is ISO. In simple terms, ISO controls how sensitive your sensor is to light. The lower the number, the less sensitive it is to light, and the higher the number, the more sensitive it is to light. But with higher ISOs, you will also get more noise in your image. Let me show you what I'm talking about. In this photo, I have an ISO of 100, and in this photo, I have an ISO of 12,800. You can see there's a little bit more noise. And in this photo, I have an ISO of over 200,000. You can see all over this photo a bunch of noise. If you didn't catch it the first time, I'll do a little bit of back and forth. You should be able to see the drastic difference of how much noise there is in each photo. Okay, now that we've covered what the three different elements are and how they affect your image, let's go over how to change these settings in a camera. The camera that I'm going to be using is the Canon R6. If you have a different camera, the buttons might look a little bit different, but usually the format is somewhat similar, especially if you have a Canon. First, change the camera settings dial to the M, which stands for manual. This will give you complete control to change your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. This top dial here changes the shutter speed. As we move back to this wheel, this changes the aperture. And finally, this dial on the front of the camera changes the ISO. This camera, like many new cameras, is also touchscreen, so you can touch each setting and change it right from the front screen. Okay, let's talk about this scale right here with the numbers -321 and +123. This is a light meter. The light meter shows a prediction of how much light will be recorded by the camera when you take a photo. It's usually displayed in the viewfinder or on the display as a scale like this. So as I change settings and attempt to balance the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO in my camera, the light meter will give me feedback based on what it detects that tells me if my image is underexposed, properly exposed, or overexposed. Here's an example. As you can see, I framed a shot of my camera lens. When I press the shutter button halfway down, my light meter is indicating that the shot is underexposed. Because with this particular shot, there's not a lot of movement, I'm not too concerned about motion blur. So I'm going to adjust my shutter speed to let in a little more light. And as I do, you can see that my light meter reading changes, and now it indicates that my shot is properly exposed. As you shoot in manual mode, the light meter on your camera will be a great tool to reference. With that being said, I would use the light meter as a tool to reference and not as a hard, fast rule. Like anything, this is definitely going to take a little bit of practice to master. So go out, put in some reps, and play with your camera. Once you've mastered shooting in manual mode or manually setting your exposure, it's going to be an absolute game changer for you as far as photography is concerned. I hope this video has been helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.